I was trying to fix it. Hey, Mary.
Like just prospects, they can come and learn about our capabilities, what we can do at Ford in terms of heavy lift commodities, grain products, and also talk about rail service at Ford. It's just an opportunity for us to showcase the Ford from positional business.
What'd you have last year?
We had 20 or 30 last year. Yeah. It was very successful with them.
Hey John, for promotion, have you taken any aerials? Any aerials taken on Ford with all the stuff in there? And
yeah.
You got some good pictures to show.
Yep. And we want to schedule another one for parts. Now, if we get one, there's a ship and part. Yeah.
More questions, John? We'll move right into Steve. Director of Operations.
On my first point there on the industrial park, St. Lawrence County, the Highway Department helped us pave the heavy industrial park road, and want to think that was kind of the board's suggestion at budget time that we do shared services, but that worked out beyond my expectations. They were real professionals, did a great job, and I just, I want to thank you for, I really think with the price of asphalt and everything, with their costs and everything, we probably shouldn't do as much as we did, but just, I know you guys mentioned it, we're looking at the budget, and I really hadn't thought of it, so Bill Dashnon did a really good job to help us out at this, but like I said, I probably wouldn't have gone if we hadn't gone that way, so I thank everybody for that.
Steve, maybe we should do a letter to the county on it, too.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Yep.
Do we have to reimburse them for their labor?
Yeah, it's
just straight labor costs.
Bill, it's really not. It's just really their labor costs for a little more than a half a day, and it was more than fair. On the bridge, on the rehabilitation project, Greenman Peterson has submitted the final design report, and they've also completed preliminary project drawings for review, so we're starting to get a finer focus on the project. Those drawings were sent to us and to the regional and to Albany, and right now they're waiting for comments on that. We'll hope to wrap up at the airport. We hope to wrap up the Beacon relocation project. National Grid is scheduled to put it in next week, and that will tie that all together, and we can move on from there. As Wade said, Cape Air was in, and they began some setup for IT and some airport services out there. As far as the port goes, last week we had 2 vessels. You see the timing in there. Point being with the flotation, that actually arrived the 30th, but we didn't discharge till the 31st. So I was very pleased with everybody there, and we discharged that one in 44 hours, which was one of the best ones. I just want to make the board aware of that. We're coming into our own on that, and don't want to get too confident, but guys are really starting to know their stuff, and feel pretty confident about that. And on the windmill barge operation, voyage number 4 is leaving tonight, and that has been going very well, and we hope to continue that. It'll be a little sticky once the 2 vessels that are coming next week. They'll be here. One will be here next Tuesday, and probably one right after that. So, the barging operation will probably switch over to loading during a night shift. So they'll be going 24 hours a day, probably for a week anyway. Then after that, we'll have 2 more vessels and be done with boats. That'll bring us a total of 11, and then we'll strictly be barging for that. So far, it's gone pretty well. We're just working out all the bugs on that.
But you no those for next week?
Oh, no, I've gotten in the groove on that one. So
we'll see Saturday night late in Alex Bay. See the barge the barge went by to go back empty to Ogdensburg. It was a nice sight.
How's the weather impacted the boat? Whether we've had the weather, moisture, stuff?
With our lay-down yards, they've kind of stayed out in front, and they've had people who put down crushed stone, so our areas have been holding up pretty well. We've got a lot of asphalt, but I just heard that, we've kind of dodged the real major ones lately. We had some early storms lately, but I heard in Kingston, in that area, they've really pounded last week, and that's impacted them quite a bit down there. But it's just a local thing. You know how the weather pattern's been going for the last 6 weeks, really. But with us, it got a little soggy for a while, but it's kind of lately it's dried up enough. We've got just enough area with the barging and with the offloading that I feel we've got enough room for these 2. We've got a 2-week break, and in that time we can move out more to get enough for the next one. Hopefully we'll just get in under the wire. We're full.
Steve, since you're running 24 hours, you may want to think about notifying neighbors, just so you don't blanks if they're running at night. Thinking whether you notify the city and that might be a good PR thing. Somehow let the neighbors along the port area know, because you're going to be trucking stuff. Or moving the stuff over. Is all going to be there and just get ready to load on? Or?
No, everything will be ready to move on, and we'll really be out on the point. But you're right, there will be
just a good PR thing. Just to let the folks know, and it's permissible, I think, down there. Just as a good relation, just to let people know, hey, we're going to be doing loading at night. We just want to give you a heads up to it.
And the people have been great. They've all been great.
Yeah, and I think so. It's just a good courtesy for them to.
Yeah, thanks. Go. I think that's those are the high points that anyone's got questions.
Is that it, Steve?
You had a reports, Personnel Committee.
Personnel Committee met earlier today, and we laid out our plan for doing the Executive Director's evaluation for this year. Sam and I are going to be working together on that, and we'll be seeking some input from other folks too.
Governance Committee.
Governance Committee also met earlier today, and we went over a number of issues having to do with policy, most of which are going to need some further discussion before we bring them to the board.
Facilities Committee.
That's right, Mark.
You practiced.
Facilities Committee met today for this meeting. Discussed the transient hangar construction project. Design is complete for CNS. Wade had a set of the drawings kicking around here. Pre-bid for that is September 2nd. The bid date is 9/11. Not sure what the let date's going to be, but that's slated for construction this fall. Also discussed the obstruction removal project. There's actually a change order with Terry Tree Service. We did some additional clearing out off 68. Made a lot of sense. FAA paid for 95% of it, so we have a 2.5% fee on that. It's in our board packet for action tonight, and the Facilities Committee recommends it. Pass that resolution. Also discussed the 14th industrial building with the building, and there's a change order in our board packet for the Skelly contractors, basically a decrease in contract value, some money for some electrical that was not necessary to be spent. And we also discussed a grant with Dank for some engineering work at the port. We essentially are going to just table that until we get some more information from Dank regarding the grant award. And we had a brief discussion about our meeting the other day with DOT Rail Division. And the only comment I really have on that, this is appropriate time wait, is basically when we met with DOT last week, I learned a heck of a lot. What I really learned is that we don't have a good feel for what our railroad infrastructure is and what kind of condition it's in. There's a grant request that's due September 30th, it's not till the end of September, okay, for additional funding for the rail. And I think Wade and John and I don't know who else is meeting tomorrow with New York and Ogdensburg to maybe discuss what the rail infrastructure requirement is going to be for that grant request. But what I've recommended to staff is they get some sort of a document together that tells us exactly what kind of condition our rail is in from port all the way to the CSX line at Norwood. It's my understanding that we've got a lot of different weight rail out there. I think we've got from the port to milepost 11, I think we've got at least a 100-pound rail. There's an 80-pound rail, a 90-pound rail. We just don't have a good feel for what we've got out there, so that's one thing that the Facilities Committee has tasked staff with, is to try to get us a condition survey, if you will, of the rail. And Jerry, that's probably something that you can get for us pretty readily. But so that was basically all that came out of that discussion.
Any questions? Okay. Finished business? Anything? No, there's not. Instant activities? September 2nd, everybody okay for that? Doesn't that interfere with anybody? Need a change? Okay. Business items?
Very light agenda tonight. Agenda item A1, General Administration, approval of Towers America Gallery Incorporated.
This is for a lease agreement with a company for 180 square feet of space on the second floor of this building at a rate of $11.07 per square foot per year. Term of the agreement, September 1, 2008 through August 31, 2009, included rates $3 per square foot to cover the cost of utilities. Also included in the agreement is appropriate insurance, named OBPA as additional.
Mark, you had initially talked to us about utilities and you were going to do kind of an analysis. $3 look okay to you?
I haven't done an analysis for the Bridge Administration building, but Calories America is using this as a storage space, if you will. So there's no computers or phones. There's strictly heat. So this $3 cover that. And a couple of buildings that I have attempted to look at haven't been really working out very well, such as the T hangars at the airport is tied in with the runway lights, so it's all in the same meter. So the first couple of attempts I've made, first couple of buildings, it's kind of a mixed up mess. So I'll keep plugging away though.
I'll make the motion.
Another question. How did they find us?
The Calories America?
Yeah. How did they know that we had space?
I don't know how they contacted us.
It's all right. That's
Good job, Patty.
Good. Okay. Good.
They shipped Ottawa.
Oh, okay.
Is this
At
ours?
least the buses.
I think they do displays for art galleries. They have some American Gallery. Sounds like something to start.
Got some high-priced art stored over there.
Could be just setups, though. You know, could be just a setup.
Second, yeah.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Second item, actually the first item for Ogdensburg Airport, second item on the list, approval change order number 1, the Carry Tree Service. This is for a project which would now total $190,000, funded at 95.5. This is for the construction removal project at Ogdensburg Airport. Steve, you want to walk us through some of the changes there, please?
Yeah, really, it's just squaring off an area that we had done out on, like, just take a quick look there. This was what originally was done right there. Sam, you've seen it. Yes. Mary. Well, right here, this was, everything in here had been eliminated, and this area in between looked kind of odd from a maintenance standpoint. So there was like 5 acres or a little bit more that we had cleared right there. So this whole area is clear right up to that tree line right there. So it was just kind of, they were just trying to get the basics there, and we had some funding to do that, so we just proceeded with that. Does that make sense to you?
So basically, since we already had the funding, we could go ahead and approve it without getting FAA, since we're taking the 95%.
Right. Well, when we saw that, we just asked, and they said that, and they ran it by FAA, and they said because the way it was budgeted for the whole thing, it was available. So they went ahead and gave them the okay on that.
Probably for the record makes sense to say that the wetland clearing and removal, 1 acre less what was planned. Wetland clearing and dropping, 4 1/3 acres more was planned, and 1 more unit of treatment. So that is what's.
One thing that I the other day was wetlands don't necessarily have wet.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Most times, just interesting fact, most times held for a wetland is because the soil, it's not
Habitat for birds.
habitat, it's not due to state water.
I'll move that.
Second.
Second.
Badger? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item C1 is approval of a change order number 2 with Skelly Contractors. This is a change order with Skelly Contractors calling for $25,000 increase in contract for electrical work at the authority's 14th building. Decrease reflects an allowance for National Grid charges associated with the installation of new electric service. Steve, you can walk us through the rest of the bid, please.
Yeah, basically, when I looked at the project, we we put $25,000 into the budget to cover the, the so-called national grid charges to get us power there, and that would be transformer and wire, underground conduit and everything like that. Well, the route that I thought they'd be using, or we talked about, was considerably larger than what they actually used. So the bids had all gone out. Skelly had $25,000 in their budget. National Grid came in and said, well, we can just cross the road, and it was a much shorter. They gave an estimate of $57.33, which was great, and to expedite everything, we paid that out of our budget rather than the construction budget, and they ordered the equipment and everything got here. So none of that money that was out of that 25, which was scheduled for that, was never used, and then we got all that back in the final. It's all reflected in the final.
But we did expend about $6,000.
Exactly, right. And in some ways, I don't want to say that we saved the money, because really that was just my anticipation of cost. It was just what it took to do it. But it was based on a different route there, so that's kind of why it's inflated like that. But it all worked out with them, and we don't owe National Grid any money, or everything's clear right there.
Every month we do.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item I'm pleased to report, this is a third salt company that approved the Port of Ogdensburg would have contracted with. This is approval of a transfer and storage agreement, American Rock Salt. At the rates that you see before you is a 2-year agreement from 2008 to 2010 shipping season. It does include a one-time carryover charge that occurs March 31st each year respective. Period of the agreement is August 13th, 2000 to March 1st. Also included in the agreement is a requirement for appropriate insurance, namely OBPA as additional insurance.
Wait, does that mean with carryover, it's a one-time charge that at the end of the 2009-10 season, if they left on premises, you're allowed to charge them once for that?
Yes, that's correct. So
And then when's their requirement to get it off premises, or does it become ours to sell, or how does that work?
no, it's still theirs. As of March 31, 2009, we throw the lever, if you will, and charge them carryover charge based on the tonnage.
But just once, so what if they leave it here for more than a year's free?
Would be highly unlikely that would occur.
That's a good question.
Why wouldn't they just carry over?
Well, because they might lose it to more salt.
We already have 2 more now, right?
So if they lose it, Mary's got a valid question here. What's the carryover? Because it's different in 3 years. Is it a continue on? Is it something that we should... Go ahead, Steve.
It should be. Regardless of whether they're doing business next year, it's just like rent. We should get some kind of rent.
But did you talk to them about this? No. I'll make a note. We're not doing it for nothing. And it doesn't become ours.
It would be easy.
It doesn't become ours.
It's easy enough to say a one-time carryover charge calculated after, blah, blah, on an annual basis.
Well, the one thing about it, you say, I don't know how long that salt's going to stay alive and then piles. And it could become a problem for us. If they say, here, take it. What are we going to do with it?
Well, yeah.
Well, but I mean, it might lose its...
It really doesn't become a consideration until after March 31st.
That's correct. Yeah, you're already charged it, and if they have left over, then it's charged.
That's for the year. That's for the one-time carryover charge. That's my point. At that end of that period of time, what happens? Oh, it's like
2010.
As March, before we got
2009
to
and-
March 2010,
contract.
we have another contract in place.
2009.
if they don't want to use it again, they'll decide to use it.
2009, if I understand it right, we charge them carry.
Yep.
Yeah, by charge.
And then 2010 you can. Once,
2010 we charge carry over, and then you're saying that.
what happens, especially if they don't use us again? I mean, if they've used us again,
What happens, April 1st, 2010, we have 10,000.
Yeah, there is no requirement in any of our salt packs. beyond terms.
Consider that.
Yeah.
We don't want it, you know, it could potentially be a liability, to be quite honest.
This is the first time I've seen a one-time carryover.
No, it's in all our thought.
It is? It's been in all of them?
Yep. These are the same rates before. Yep. But you can go ahead and amend it. I'm sure that's fine. And you work it in. You just want to say annually.
I mean, I don't expect them to be leaving their inventory. They expect to leave their inventory here either, but it seems like we should have something in there that
We
we
can add a line right to rate to agreement that says all.
on an annual basis.
It depends whether they get a contract or not. If they don't get a contract here, it's here.
More than a couple of years ago, we had the Morton had the contract down here. They had, they didn't do nothing.
Right, they kept it over.
Yeah.
It stayed here, but it's so valuable that they're able to, just a common sense thing, I would imagine, if they know they haven't got business here yet, they've got 5,000, they'll find somebody to sell it to at that price. I would imagine it'd be gone, but they could conceivably.
Put us in a tough position, though.
We'd find something.
Well, we got a pile of salt down there, and we lose a big contract like the window.
Right.
We have a pile of salt sitting there.
Yeah, true. If you put it in the
Real
wrong
estate
place.
becomes valuable at some point.
That's right.
Or could we just change the wording instead of one time to just say an annual charge?
Well, if you're worried about storage interfering with other projects, then maybe you should have a drop dead date or have to move it.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Don't worry about collecting the money for it, but say 90 days after the March date, you have to move remaining property. Now, if you're talking about valuable storage space for other things, like wood.
Well, that and it could become a liability at some time. So it just
That's
seems like
very true.
Well, let's just say it was sitting there after that date, you had somewhere else, you'd get paid. Right? Right.
If you got another location for it, yeah.
You're going to get paid $1.16 or $1.22.
But is that true? Because now our contract is over. We're beyond that outside date of that. Now the trucking, loading, weighing, relocation are all outside the contract provisions.
Is there a extension provision? No.
Well, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we pass
They got
this?
product there, they're not going to leave it.
Yeah.
We're not going to leave it there without having some kind of lease.
Right.
A lease expires, it's sitting in our property. Own it.
Yeah.
So it's very valuable. You'd have a right, you'd have
To renegotiate at that point.
I would think
You're right, second only, yes.
Yeah.
We'll pass this resolution and present it here and then take all the concerns and report back to us. Seems to be as much sense.
Well, and it seems like, too, we should have the sort of standard procedure for each of our salt and chip.
They're saying for future leases.
Yeah.
What are the other two awards? Have we ever had three contracts?
We used to have two because we had different colored salts down there.
But more North American.
Pink and blue.
Blue, we had a first time they've actually, well, they're fairly new, but it comes from.
Where does this come
from? The line flaps.
Stay here.
They're coming in by rail a lot of times.
By rail.
How'd they get here?
Probably rail.
He was coming in by rail.
Really using our rail.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of.
They'll
lot of
only be
rail traffic.
Morton and, so they're going to find American salt. North American. North American brought two vessels.
That's okay.
They handled this year's contract to the
You had coming by rail.
and it's all done.
How many rail cars, Jerry?
700 to 1,000 cars.
Wow.
It's going to really give us a boost. That's
How heavy are those cars?
100 tons.
Yeah. Okay, motion's in order to pass the resolution.
I'll make that one move.
Seconded by Bill. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Gary, can I ask you a quick question? Years ago, when we wanted talc and zinc to come here, and it was zinc in particular because it was Mick Lawler gave me a lesson on gondola cars and why they couldn't use our shipping. Do we have any of those issues with commodities like salt? Apparently, zinc can't use us because we don't have gondola cars.
So that I've had extensive conversations with Waller, and we were on the verge of bringing the zinc up here 3 or 4 years ago until that Peschney company got thrown out of their group and they got in with Pun Bay,
but they wanted the four to go to Valleyfield, so there was no longer a need. Rental cars are readily available on the open market, and we were certainly prepared at the time to lease a fleet of hot gondola cars for that service.
Okay.
And but it just was never happened.
Because that was my discussion with him, is that if we needed different types of cars, then that would be something we
So they're out there.
Okay.
It's
not that we're out of date necessarily, it's just that they haven't used us, we could access them or lease.
I mean, you don't want to have an asset sitting around
Right,
and
not using.
don't have them unless we need them.
But you don't need that for salt.
No, the salts come in what they call covered hopper cars, which are with roofs and hatches, and those are leased by the salt company. So we just haul their equipment.
Great. Thank you.
The last item on our agenda this evening is agenda item 21, such other matters. Approval of fixed asset policy. The authority's existing fixed asset policy last year, 1990. Policy has been reviewed by management. Updates to the policy were made. Governance committee met this afternoon. Reviewed the amended policy. This is in concurrence with staff recommendation.
The board had a chance to go over this.
No, not
What
really.
were changes? Highlight changes. Donnie, you want to speak
Okay,
on
the one major change was that we raised the threshold on capitalization to $2,500, or I think Mark said before it was $500. And we had a short discussion about that, dealing mostly with things accountants take notice of, like long depreciation schedules for no real useful purpose, and that was really the reason for raising the threshold to $2,500.
Does that affect our bridge by any chance, since we have such a long useful life of the bridge?
No.
No.
The existing assets will stay with the 100-year on the bridge.
This is going forward.
Cheap.
the motion?
Make a motion.
Don? Sam, you second it? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You don't change it.
It's now regular. Now regular.
It's like doing assessment challenge. You do it every year, you do it every 3 years.
Depends on if you have something.
Dealing with
Research.
Last time we
We
brought
just have a
it
motion, we have a motion, just in case I got to send you out.
buildings are going to.
I got a short,
Article 7 is scarred.
very short executive session, a legal matter, discussed with our attorney. So I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. There'll be nothing coming out of the executive session, just a... If you guys want to hang around, you can, because it's going to be short, and you can talk to Wade all night.